Great. I was just hoping to give you guys a little bit of background on how I got to Google, and then you guys can feel free to ask questions throughout it or after along the way. I also have some good questions to some prompts to answer if you don't have questions, but hopefully you do because I would love to answer them. So I'll start. My name is Renee. I am from Darien, Illinois. So I went to Hinsdale South High School. I graduated in 2015. I took one computer science class there, took AP Computer Science, did not take the AP test, did not learn much in that class. So you guys are probably far ahead of me in that field already. Went to Indiana University in Bloomington for 4 years, graduated with a computer science degree. I did not go in with that degree, so I changed throughout my studies to choose computer science. Let's see what else. I studied abroad in Spain, Madrid, Spain. Didn't do any computer science there, just took Spanish classes. And I had an internship the summer of 2016. So after my freshman year at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Group, which is um, a company that works the stocks and options market for the world. And I was in IT. I was in business. So it's a business company, and I was doing IT. Wasn't doing any coding, but it was still a really great experience. And I got to commute downtown every day with my dad on the train, which was exciting. And then the following summer, I did an internship with Google in Mountain View, California, which is where their headquarters is. And I got it's their STEP program, which I'm not exactly sure what it stands for because it was called something different when I did it. But it's a program for undergraduate freshmen and sophomores in computer science that have an interest at working at Google or working in tech. And it's a little bit more guided than a normal internship. So instead of having your own project with your manager, you have a project with a partner intern, and you work on it together throughout the summer and complete it. That summer, I was on an internal team. It was named Alkali. I could not tell you why it was named Alkali, but that was it. And I worked on a web platform for creating fast web apps that's used internally now. And then the following summer, I decided to go back to Google, but this time in San Francisco. So I was living in the city, and I had a full software engineering internship. So I was on my own with my manager and my team, and I worked on Google Cloud Platform very specifically because you'll find that you kind of work on very specific projects. I worked on the search bar on Google Cloud Platform and added in a small filter box. Um, so it was a really fun summer, and I got to live in the city and learned a lot. The internships were extremely valuable for me, but they weren't like the only thing that got me to Google. After that summer, I ended up signing full time with Google and started September of 2019. So I've been at Google in Boulder, Colorado for over a year, almost a year and a half. Um, and I work on the Google Street View team, which many people don't know it exists, but there is a Street View app separate from the Maps app. And my team works on that app, mainly the Android app, but we do sometimes have to work on the iOS app, where users can contribute their own Street View, so their own imagery. Um, and yeah, it's really exciting. We just launched a feature to the world, and we're in the process of getting it out there, which is fun and stressful. But overall, my job is not at all what I thought it would be. But uh, when I was in school, I thought computer science jobs were just coding and coding and a bunch of more coding. And my internships were really good at exposing me to what the job would be like. But going full time was also eye opening because I had a lot more responsibilities in the best ways. I code as well, but I also have to design what I'm coding. It's a lot of collaboration between the team and talking about what decision to make, why we're making that decision. Um, and I mainly focus on front end work, so how things look to users. But my last project had to do all front end and back end, so hooking up all of the data to it. Um, there's really companies like Google are so big, they like kind of expect you to be able to do it all, but they give you a bunch of help along the way. So that is basically how I got to where I am. But if people have questions or anything specific about Google or anything else, I'm free to answer them. And if not, I have a bunch of prompts I can answer.
What do you work on at Google? Like what specifically? Is there anything we could see on a site? Maybe?
You can download the Street View app. I do not suggest downloading the iOS one because we don't put much effort into it. But you can see it. All of the Street View imagery. People generally know what Street View is, right? Like when you jump into Google Maps and you add the Street View layer and you could see photos like on the ground level of houses. I usually use it just to like look at where my parents' house is and what it looks like now. But there's a lot of other practical uses for it. So my team works on the app that you can take those photos because we have Google Street Cars. You've probably seen like them driving around with the big cameras on top, or people like doing funny things in front of them. So we don't operate those, but we do. There are other ways that they can add imagery, and we're trying to make it more crowdsourced to get more imagery because it's really expensive to drive a car around the world and get photos of the streets. And some places are just inaccessible by cars. So we work on the app to make it easier for people to contribute it. It's mainly updated in the Android version, and that is all in Java, if anybody's wondering.
Pretty cool.
Any other questions?
So what does your average day at Google look like?
Yeah, good question. It's a little different now because I'm work from home. So the responsibilities haven't changed, just the style of communication has changed a lot. We are work from home until September, so we're in it for the long haul. But the job is a great job to do remotely. And I do know that we're even talking about when we go back, not doing a full work week at the office. So maybe doing 3 days in the office, 2 days at work from home or wherever you're most comfortable. That might be the office. But generally, my responsibilities, I'm like still technically an entry level employee for software engineering, and I have a project. So my project right now entails making the imagery more useful to users. So somebody might add a photo and we use it, but they don't know what we use it for or if it's even helpful for us. So I'm working on making that more helpful to users. And so I might go in. Right now, my responsibilities include creating like design docs, coming up with ideas for new features. There's a lot of document writing because Google is a very big company. So they want to make sure that the ideas that they're doing make sense for users, make sense in a business way as well. So as an engineer, I have a good amount of like power in deciding what I work on. Each company is a little bit different on how much design power that engineers have, but Google is fairly good with giving engineers a good say in what they work on and like what features get pushed. So I had to write a design doc and get that reviewed by my team, which is just kind of like an overview of what I want to do, how I'm gonna do it, and then a bunch of people comment on it and say like, yes, you should do this, or like, have you thought about this scenario? How would you respond to that? And when that's done, basically everything there is planned out of how I'm gonna program it, and then I just have to like program it. So I spend probably like 60% of my time at work actually coding. And then other times there's meetings, strategy meetings or design meetings. But the majority of my job is coding or designing what I'm going to code, and then responding to a lot of emails.
Have there ever been times where you had to collaborate with other teams in Google?
Yes, all the time. This last project was more difficult for me because it was remote and it crossed 5 different teams that we needed work done by all of them in order to make my part successful. So that was pretty local because all of those teams are in Boulder. So I knew all the people. But each team has their designated role and they own certain things. And you have to work with them pretty directly to get stuff done. It's a very collaborative workplace and job in general because you can't do it all by yourself. But other examples are my team works on getting the imagery, but then the team that actually works on showing the imagery. So like when you go into maps online and look at the imagery, like my team does not deal with that. But we need to work extremely closely with the team that presents the imagery to show that we can, to show the way. Trying to think. We also, not my team specifically, but my organization, I'm in Geo, which includes maps, but we have the same like director or like vice president as search and ads. So even cross product areas are collaborating a lot.
You said that you code 60% of the time. What languages do you think, do you code in, and then what languages when you were learning, like as a student, do you think helped you as your position in Google today?
Yeah, great question. I mainly work in Java right now. And that's actually a lot of what my classes were in school. Ultimately, though, I would say it doesn't matter. Like, if you learn computer science, programming, like basics, and anything that you're most comfortable with, you can interview with like any of those languages. And that like when you interview, it's just like whatever language is most comfortable for you. I've been expected to, like, I think this year alone, I've coded in like 5 different languages, probably 4 of which I'm not proficient in at all. But once you learn the basics in something like Java or C++ or one of the core ones that other ones are built off of, everything else is just like some other version of that. And there's some nuances that you'll find with other languages. But I've had to write in C, what is it, Swift, I guess, or an Objective-C for iOS, JavaScript for web, a bunch of different things. But I've learned that, like, especially companies like Google aren't looking for you to be the best at one specific language. I mean, that's great if you are. You can review everybody's code if you're really good at that language. But they're more looking for well-rounded people that can learn and are open to learning and have that growth mindset, because you might end up taking on a lot of different roles and have to do a lot of different jobs. And you don't want to be like stuck in one language. Kind of being a jack of all trades is the best part that you can do for working at a company like this, being super flexible. Go ahead.
So let's say you decided that you wanted to switch teams and work on something different. How easy is it to move within your company? And if you switch to a different team, does that require you to move to a different location geographically?
Yeah, so flexibility in job, team, location, whatever, is one of the major reasons why I chose to stay at Google. They're a massive company. At some point, I plan on working abroad. I don't know where that is yet, but they have offices all over the world. Changing teams can be across countries, states, cities, or it could be the exact same office, which is really common. especially in my office in Boulder. Each office has its own personality, in a way, its own culture. And Boulder has a lot of people from Colorado or people that are like settling down in Colorado. So the process looks like whenever you're ready to leave your team, you just talk to your manager. There's also an internal job site where you can look at teams that are posting that they need a certain level of engineer. And you reach out to managers that you've like of teams that you find interesting. You talk to your manager and say like you're kind of looking for a new opportunity. I haven't done this yet. I've only been here like a year and a half, but the average time I think on a team is like 2 to 3 years until you're like kind of looking for something new. The process is really easy. They pay for relocation all the time. So a lot of my colleagues moved here from the Bay Area and they got like full relocation, which is really nice. But the interview process to switch teams is just talking with the manager and seeing if you're a good fit for the team, both in responsibility and just team culture. You'll find that team culture is a big part of your job. And if you don't like the people that you work with, that's really hard to excel at your job. But changing teams, Google's all about flexibility. If you are interested in something else, you can do it. We also have something called 20% projects where you talk to your manager. And if you have something that you're really interested in outside of your normal role responsibilities, you can work on that as a 20% project. So you spend 80% of your time working on your normal work and 20% of your time working on whatever you want to. I have a coworker who is really interested in environmental and climate change issues, and she works 20% with the Geo for Everyone team, which works on specifically that. So she works remotely with them and uses 20% of her time to help them on their initiatives.
What was one of the reasons that you switched majors in college?
The switch majors. I started as informatics, which is similar to computer science, but very or less technical. I would say you're not the job roles that would come from that degree often are not coding ones. I do know plenty of people that went into computer science roles or software engineering roles from that, but I took my first programming class my second semester of freshman year and loved the actual like, building something aspect of it. So I switched over to computer science. I had chosen informatics in the beginning because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And my dad was talking to me and was like, "You're good at math and science, so like you should maybe do something in technology." And informatics was pretty flexible in what you did with it. But I know plenty of people that switched to computer science later than I did and still did really well, or people that started in computer science and stayed in it and loved it. I also want to comment, I had a very traditional path to Google, I'd say, with the internships and going full time with them straight out of college with a software engineering or computer science degree. Everybody that I talk to at Google, some people have the same path as mine. A lot of people have very different paths. So I was on a panel maybe 2 weeks ago with a group of women, and none of them had a traditional background. Like one was an architect before and is now a UX designer. One worked for NASA and then was like a project lead for Magic the Gathering and now works at Google. They all just took their own paths to where they were. And Google really values that difference of opinion and difference of path. So I know I felt a lot of pressure in high school and in college to like, what's the right path to be on to get me to this specific thing? And I was like, I want to work at Google. How do I get there? Maybe it's more frustrating, but like there is no direct path that you have to take. So the more passions that you pursue, and if that leads you to like Google or computer science or whatever it is far more valuable to you and the company that you work with than just like feeling the pressure to go in one direct line to the same spot.
Do you think you got anything out of the Chicago Stock Exchange internship or volunteer thing that you did? And
Yeah.
how did that impact your role as your following year at Google?
Yeah, so I did not like the internship at all, but I did get a lot out of it. I learned, I think the biggest thing was I learned what I did not like in a company or in a role. I did not want to be in business, or I did not want to be in tech in business. It worked for some people, but for me, I wanted the prime focus of the company to be what I was working on. Um, and I was doing more IT stuff, and I was like, I want to dig into something and like build it instead of just like doing miscellaneous things. I think the internship was also kind of not formatted well for me. Um, but I met a lot of really, really cool people. And that was helpful actually in getting me the internship for Google. There was a woman that they had like a women in tech kind of conference at the internship. And the moderator was an employee at Google Chicago. And she happened to be at my table. And I had asked her if I could tour the building at the office at Google because I had heard that they were really cool. It was really cool. If you guys get a chance to go down to Google Chicago, like it's a really cool office. But then she introduced me to another engineer who told me about the STEP program, and that kind of began my path at Google. So I got a lot out of it without actually liking it, but it was very important in my path to figuring out what I liked in a job and what I did not like in a job. I can talk about the interview process if people want to hear about that. So, again, mine was a little bit different because I came from internships, but I also can now give interviews, so I can speak on that side as well. I My interviews were very basic because they were only looking for underclassmen, freshman and sophomore in computer science, so they only expected you to take one or two computer science classes at that point. But they were phone interviews. I had two of them. They called me and asked me some questions. Some were, I actually coded on a Google Doc, which I highly recommend if you are doing interviews and you happen to be like, doing them with Google where you're working on some kind of, or any platform that you're not comfortable with, going on it before and practicing because it's just another factor that you don't want to get nervous about what you're using. But it was a Google Doc. It was really simple questions. They do not tell you if you're right or wrong, but the Google way of interviewing is very collaborative. It's very reflective of the office place. They're there to help you. They're not there to stump you. I'm pretty sure they've removed all of the questions that are just like insane to like ask somebody. Like if people have seen the movie The Internship with like Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn, like they ask him what you would do if you were shrink down to the size of like something super small and put in a blender. Like how would you get out? Like none of those stumpers. Like they do not want you to be confused. They just want to see how you work. The goal is not for you to get the right answer, although they would love that and you would probably feel more comfortable with that. The goal is to see how you work. So you have to talk out loud a lot, talk about why you're making the decisions that you're making. You can ask them questions. If you're kind of going down the wrong path, they might help guide you. But the goal, there's like different rating scales. One of them is like how well you would fit into the Google culture based on how well you communicate. One of them is just like, do you know your basics? But the goal, I think if you're coming for a full-time position, you have 5 interviews in one day. which is a lot and it's super draining, and they realize that. But 4 of them are technical, so they ask you to solve a problem or work through a problem, and 1 of them is just informational for you to ask questions, which they don't like actually put feedback on you for that. So you like have the liberty to ask whatever you want of the employee that's interviewing you. But they're definitely hard. Google interviews are notoriously difficult, but I think a lot of the pressure is feeling that you have to get the right answer. And once you realize that they're just trying to see how you work, it makes it a lot more comfortable for you and the interviewer. They're just as nervous as you are to interview you as well.
How is the workload at Google?
Yeah, it is depending on each team. They might have different deadlines. It is busy, but not overly stressful. I have friends at other companies who are always stressed, and I have enough stress to motivate me, but I'm very comfortable closing my laptop at the end of the day and not opening it later. Um, and in your first couple years, they give you ample time to just kind of explore and figure stuff out. The first, I think there's different time ranges, but I was told when I started, they don't expect, and they call their new hires nooglers, which is silly, but it's a title that I like. So they don't expect their nooglers to really contribute to the team until 6 months to a year in. So as a new hire, you're just a long-term investment for them. But you spend a lot of time figuring out the internal tools to use. And they call it like drinking through a fire hose with all the Google information because there's a lot of resources and an overwhelming amount of resources. But my workload is manageable. Like I don't go crazy. I sleep well, and they really value your mental health, which is important for me in a company to not feel like I need to sacrifice parts of my life to work there. Yeah, I'm busy right now with features launching, but it's like a good busy. Like I have something to do every day. I'm not bored at all. I don't think there's a way to be bored at Google. So
What do you use for like your meetings online and stuff?
we use Google Meet. I think it's had like 5 different names in the past 3 years. Like there's Hangouts. They're all the same thing. So we use Google Meet. We call it GVC, Google Video Chat. And yeah, that's all we use. I'm on my personal laptop right now because we're not allowed to like have Zoom or like third party stuff on our laptops. But it's fun. We get to like we get to test out all the new features before they're released to the public. So I don't actually know what's released to the public on Meet, but there's a lot of like fun interactive things that they've had to add because of COVID. That my team uses a lot of like emojis and stuff on the chat, but we mainly communicate through that. We message each other a lot on, I don't know what it's called. I think Hangouts still exists, but I'm not exactly sure. But it's the Hangouts chat. Like if you were in Gmail and you chatted through that, we chat through that as well.
Are most of the people you work with like the stereotypical computer science nerds?
Yes and no. I think we all are. I don't. Google is a very diverse group, and they're working on their diversity more each year. I work. I'm trying to think. My team. I'm one of 2 women of 5 people, so definitely could be a better ratio, but it's also not terrible. And my manager's a woman, my director is a woman, and my VP of engineering is also a woman. So that's awesome to see as a female in computer science. But people are smart. I love the people at Google. They're very intelligent, but also communication is a big skill. So they're very social. But we all like geek out at a lot of the stuff we do. So there's truly a place for everybody at Google. Like it's just a team fit, a team culture fit, and yeah, there's like over 100,000 employees, so there's a lot of different types of people. But Google attracts really good employees, and that's another reason. Both the flexibility of the job and the people I work with were big factors of why I chose Google. I think my team plays Among Us once a week at least. That's how we've stayed connected. I know that there's a lot of D&D subgroups that have met throughout COVID, like virtually.
And sold.
Yeah, there's a lot of small groups that do fun stuff at like virtually or in person. There's a lot of clubs that you can join at Google. I think there's like drink tasting clubs, or there's a group of like 20 employees that play spike ball every day when we're in the office. I assume they get their work done, but they're always out there. Let's see. Let me see what other prompts I have. You guys are asking great questions. I wish I had these answers when I was in high school because I had no idea what I wanted to do. Um, Parts of college that prepared me best for my job were actually, I mean, obviously the basics of computer science classes were very important for computer science. I think that goes without saying, just the fundamentals. Um, but I worked in a nonprofit throughout school that did the technical work for a bunch of other nonprofits in the area. And that actually was probably my most influential. It was for credit, so I guess a class, but experience, because it was about more than just the technical work. You were working in teams, you were working with a client, with a deadline, with preferences that weren't necessarily what you wanted to do. It was very good practice on working with others and working on a project. Um, that was very influential. And then, yeah, just all the other classes outside that I took ended up like miraculously helping me in ways that I didn't think they would. I took Spanish in, I minored in Spanish. I don't use Spanish at work, but again, it's just like that. Learning how to learn is really important. There's a bunch of things that even my technical lead, who's like our project lead, doesn't know on our projects, and he just has to like go find the right people to talk to or like find the right documents to read. So just knowing how to quickly pick up things has been super important for the job, and learning that in college was very helpful for me as well.
Oh, I have a question.
Mhm.
So, what would you say is your most challenging experience as a computer scientist or on your journey to being a computer scientist?
Yeah, that one is hard. That one, I think it's super overwhelming joining a company that's very big and it hires notoriously like very smart people. Um, so I think getting over that, uh, being okay with not knowing everything has been hard for me. I did well in high school, and in college, and then coming to a company that I had to learn and ask questions and figure stuff out, but also like let other people help me figure stuff out was really difficult for me. But it's a lot easier when you realize that you can ask questions and people will gladly answer them. Um, and yeah, just like having that pressure to feel like I needed to like master a certain area of computer science before I was like good enough for it is just not true. And you realize that most people don't know what they're doing, which is kind of nice. And you're all kind of just getting through it. That was good. Yeah, those are probably the most difficult things. And it doesn't have to do with the actual material of computer science, because like I said, you could ask people for help. It was that like getting past the mental block of what I thought I needed to be a software engineer versus what I actually needed to be.
Oh, thank you.
Let's see. I can talk about the perks really quickly, which I find that a lot of the bigger companies have similar perks, or just like some different form of them. We do get fed, not right now because we're work from home, but we get fed in my office breakfast and lunch and snacks. There are sleeping nap rooms. There are massages, like you can get massage points. I think you get them like 60 points a year, which is like $60 a year. Massages that stay on campus. What else? There's just like a lot of fun stuff. There's scooters around the office. The offices are just very cool. The Boulder office is modeled kind of after different layers of the atmosphere. So there's a lot of fun stuff. There's like there's hammocks around, there's baristas. Micro kitchens are like break rooms, but on steroids. Like they have anything you could think of. So we get mental health days don't count as sick days or as paid time off days. So you can take those days off just to like do your own thing. It's a really flexible schedule as well. So if you have a doctor's appointment or you have to like go pick up somebody from the airport during the day, you just talk to your manager and can oh sure. I'm not sure if you already talked about this, but like cubicles. I think we have an open plan. We have our own desks and we have like permanent desks that are like our workstations are on. And again, each office is a little bit different. The teams that work on organizing the offices are amazing, but ours were in like triangles. Like the desks were a little weird. They're standing and sitting desks, so that's nice, the flexibility. But they were like kind of pods and then dispersed throughout it. But I could very easily see my neighbor. It was not siloed at all. There's whiteboards everywhere. So if you need to like stand up and figure out how you're gonna like work on something with people, you just stand up and like use the whiteboard. My team also has a twice a week stand up, which is where we in the office we'd get a room and just talk about what we've worked on the previous day and what we're going to work on. So you're all kind of up to date with what people are doing. And it actually is super helpful to answer questions if you're struggling on something and somebody's like, oh yeah, I worked on that like last year. Like, let me help you out. That happens a lot. They make it so it's extremely collaborative. And that is why we have perks like the micro kitchens, which are well stocked because they hope people will go there, see somebody they know, chat about some problems they have, and then come out with a solution, which does happen a lot. Do you have any other things? I think I went through like most of the prompts. Yeah. What are you guys learning in computer science right now?
We've mostly been learning React Native.
Nice. Yeah, there are some teams that use that at Google. But my team has had debates about it. And we've decided just to stick with our legacy code. in Java.
Yeah, I don't like React Native.
We learned here with Android Studio, and because they took Java last year, but with us starting remote, we started with React Native, and we did that first semester. And second semester, we're going to be branching into kind of a, I don't know if choose your own adventure is the right analogy, but allowing the students to kind of pick their area of focus, whether they want to work on Android Studio, whether they want to work on Unity and do game development, or if they have a Mac computer and want to work on doing Xcode with Swift. And then some students have said they want to continue working with React Native and explore that further. So we're kind of in a situation where a lot of students are continuing to stay remote for second semester. And so essentially those students have a Windows machine, but they have an iPhone. And so the problem is they can't test their apps on their personal phone unless they're doing something like React. And then they can't develop an iOS app on their Windows machine. And then there was just been a lot of roadblocks that we've been running into. And then some of their personal machines aren't powerful enough to run the Android simulators. And so we've been trying to troubleshoot, I guess is the best way to put it. And so we're doing the best we can with the cards we've been dealt. And the students just finished doing a probably close to 2-month group project where they came up with an idea and they've been developing an app, and then we're starting our group presentations next week. So
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I run into that problem too. That makes you feel any better. I have a PC, but if I want to do any personal projects, I have an iPhone, so I can't. And then I use a Mac for work, which is exciting, and I'm not used to it. But the different platforms are definitely really difficult. But we do use Android Studio at work. So if you're comfortable with that, you're far better than I am because I'm not comfortable with Android Studio. I don't use it. I use like we have like a web IDE that is Google specific that I use, and then I use command line to build it. So I'm definitely old school in that. And that's just out of stubbornness to not want to spend time learning Android Studio. But I like maybe like once a year, maybe twice a year, I come to like, I should really use Android Studio. And I like start at it again. And then I just kind of give up. But one day I will use Android Studio. It has really good debugging properties that I do not have. I use like print line debugging sometimes.
All right. Do you have any other questions for Renee? Questions about college, about coding, about different internships, about so she talks a lot about Google, but there's, she could answer questions about, other things, just anything at all.
Yeah, I also Google is like more than just software engineers, and I know a good amount about other roles that are related to tech. If you have any questions about things other than just coding, a lot of people have computer science degrees but don't necessarily go into software engineering. One skill that I ended up using a lot more this year than I thought that I wouldn't, is UX designing. So like designing what things look like. I use Figma for that. It's a really easy tool to just make user interfaces. But my team will often be like, we have this problem, and I might like offer a solution, and they'll say, cool, like show us what it would look like. And then it's up to me to like figure out what that is. And we do have a UX designer whose job is to do that, but he's very busy. So oftentimes it takes an engineer's first pass at it to do. So that's a part of my job that I did not think I'd be able to do, but I do really enjoy the design process of like how things look. And I get to do that a lot.
So you said that you have your work computer and your personal computer, and that there's a lot of rules about what you can and can't have on your work computer. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think, that's a good thing to bring up in terms of like security and what kinds of rules there are with work technology.
Yeah. So Google's biggest priority is keeping Google safe. So I have my my Mac right here. It's plugged in. And that I don't do any personal things on for a couple reasons. I just don't want to introduce any vulnerabilities into Google. They're very locked down, so there's not much I could do. I would have to be very malicious to put something on there. But there's a lot of just protocols that we have to follow. If you want certain software on there, you have to request it from them, and they have to approve it. Like I don't use Zoom on it. Even just updating the Mac, I have to get a go ahead, like an email from that team that deals with that says it's okay to update to the newest OS. Yeah, just general like web surfing, I don't do on it. Google's pretty flexible about like what you look at. Like there's no websites that are locked down, but that's just more of a personal preference. Like I have my own laptop to search stuff on. And there, Google also made it very easy to, we have a meme gen board. So it's just like an online board of people making memes. So like if you want to get entertained and not do work, you could go on that. But yeah, it's very much my work computer, and I leave it for that. And we have like secondary security keys, so it's more than just your password. They make it very, very safe. And then if you like if something goes wrong, you could send it into the tech team that works on that. But it's my Google computer, and that's really it.
And you said it's a Mac. Does everybody use Mac, or is it a personal preference as to what you use?
It's a personal preference. My manager, when I was starting, suggested I get a Mac. I think just because he's like, why not? You can get a Mac, so you should. But a lot of my team uses Chromebooks. People use PCs. There's no like standard. I think there was opportunity that I could be working on parts of the iOS app, so the Mac was beneficial in that way. But I know at least half my team has a Chromebook, Pixelbook, I guess. And we also get, I don't have it on me right now, but because we're an Android mobile team, we have like test devices. So in the office, there's just like a whole cabinet of old devices, new devices that we have to test all of our code on before we push it out to people.
So you talked. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say we were almost out of time, and I was going to say we probably have time for one more question, and that can be yours. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So you talked a little bit about kind of working with that nonprofit and just like looking for internships. So I'm kind of wondering like what was your process for, kind of either finding that class to like work with that nonprofit and like searching for internships and kind of finding what you were interested in?
So the nonprofit was definitely advertised to me as a freshman. So they like came into our class and gave a presentation, and then it was a way to get credit as well. So I ended up getting like 7 credits from that class because I did it all 4 years. But I really just like looked at what I liked doing and the environment that I wanted to be in, and I would say like networking feels like kind of a gross word, but like networking is very important. And just like people want to help you out. So even if you're not like asking them for a job, if you're asking them for like what they do and why they like doing it, they can help give you ideas of just examples of stuff you can do. Like I had no idea what the woman at Google that came to that like one Women in Tech event, what she did. I had no idea what a software engineer did until she connected me with a software engineer. So just talking to people and hearing what they do has been very important for me. Even now, I hear what other people on different teams are doing, and that could be beneficial when I'm looking to transfer teams at some point for my next opportunity. But yeah, just figuring out what you like doing and talking to people who might already be doing that is the best way to find the next opportunity, or at least get more guidance on the next thing to ask.
I'm muted. Thank you so much, Renee, for joining us today and for sharing and just taking time out of your day. You know, like you said, this is your work day. This is your work time. So we appreciate you taking that time out to come talk with us and share with us. And I know your information was very, very helpful. So thank you very much. And for my students, don't forget about the